Hello, and welcome to today's lecture on introducing China's car culture. I am pleased to share with you some fascinating insights on the history and development of one of the fastest growing industries in this country, the auto industry. The automobile is one of the most common modes of transportation around the world. And here in China, the vast population of this country is no secret, with the hundreds of millions of Chinese people relying on cars for their daily commute. However, it was not always this way. Just a short generation ago, it was actually quite rare to see individuals being able to operate a large machine with four wheels, hauling people around from one spot to another. Now, we can see these commuting machines everywhere, from major cities to small towns to villages and across the whole countryside. Since 2009, China has become the world's largest auto manufacturing country, accounting for more than 32% of the world's vehicle production, surpassing the European Union or the manufacturing output by the United States and Japan combined. From this impressive rapid change into becoming the largest automotive market, how did China get there? What caused the demands for these machines? And how did cars shape China's consumers and their shopping habits? Before I answer these questions and more, let me take you back to where and when it all started to get a better understanding how car culture in China was formed. While the world was celebrating automatic transmission and air conditioning being the latest, greatest innovation for automobiles in the 1950s, there was barely any vehicles yet to be found in China during that decade. There were a select few imported cars, in which I'll explain more later, but that wasn't enough to make a country consider having its own auto industry. That was until the Chinese central government announced that China should build its own car. Enter the First Automotive Works, also known as FAW, becoming China's first automobile manufacturer in 1953. In a few years, FAW built its first production plant in Changchun, Jilin province, with its very first passenger car called Dongfeng CA71 in 1958. Although China entered late into the automotive sphere compared to the rest of the developed parts of the world, it does not necessarily mean it's behind. During its short 65-year auto history, its humble beginnings led to an auto boom into the new century. Take a look at these logos, for example. How many can you identify? Can you imagine China currently has almost 200 domestic auto manufacturers? I already lost count by the double digits. It's amazing how much can change in a short time frame. While this amount can be overwhelming, allow me to introduce to you some of these brands to help you get a better picture on Chinese cars that are shaping the auto industry. Alright, so now we have an idea of some major auto manufacturers here in China, but what shapes their purchases? With so many brands and vehicles to choose from, how does the 1.4 billion people decide on which car to buy? This is where culture within one society plays a significant role on the decision-making process. In the United States, for instance, there are customers who pay close attention to certain factors that will help buyers narrow down their car purchase options based on their needs, budget, and preferences. Another set of customers may care a little more on the details, perhaps about horsepower, styling, gas efficiency, and so forth. So, to see how these factors may shape a country's car culture, let's take the muscle car as an example, especially how the good old US of A is the home of this special type of sports car. For those who are not familiar with cars in itself, a muscle car is a subcategory type of vehicle in the sports car genre, with its large V8 engines, top speeds that could outrun some professional race cars of the day, and its signature growl under the hood with an exhaust note that your neighbors can hear from many blocks away. And for those who are very familiar would know that not every US auto manufacturer produces this so-called muscle car, and you would have a soft sweet spot for a particular make and model, and most of the time, even the year it was manufactured, such as a 1971 Plymouth Hemi-Cuda for me, please. Dating back to the year of 1949 with the Oldsmobile Rocket 88 being the godfather of muscle cars, inspired another automaker called Pontiac that rumbled the automotive industry with a magnificent beauty that came to be known as the GTO in 1964. This monumental moment sparked the golden era of muscle cars of that respective decade. Yes, the Ford Mustang is responsible for this too, but I'm giving credit where credit is due, since the GTO was made for the masses and came out just a few months before the Mustang. Many American producing auto brands wanted a piece of this history in the making by developing their own V8 growling speed demons. These type of cars surpassed other vehicle categories at the time in terms of popularity and sales, and created a loyal fan base which still exists today. This loyal fan base led to its own subculture in the United States who seeks the thrill of speed, power, and glorious bragging rights at the quarter mile. Who doesn't want to have that James Dean rebel aura when you're behind the wheel of a muscular machine? Fast forward to the present time. The same generation who fell in love with muscle cars still do, and their children probably do too. Not everyone is a fan of this type of sports car. They are heavy, they are loud, and they drink a lot of gasoline like a fish if it was mechanical. Due to these common drawbacks about muscle cars, not every country sells them. Dodge, for instance, still makes muscle cars today. Big fan of the Scat Pack right here. But you won't be able to find any Hemi-powered Chargers or Challengers in any showrooms in China. Why? Because Dodge is aware of what Chinese customers want and offers their SUV lines instead. Why only SUVs? Even their Ram product line of pickup trucks are not sold here as well. So what's going on? What do Chinese customers want? The wants and needs of a society is based on their life values and habits within its own culture. That will then shape an industry whether it could thrive, fail, or barely navigate ahead to survive. China's car culture goes beyond individual taste and personality reflection in contrast to their American counterparts. In other words, Chinese customers do not necessarily buy a car to reflect their character, but instead to reflect their social status. If my status is a married man with a child, I would dare not to think of buying that muscle car because sports cars are typically two doors and it would be a hassle to move the front seats every time for the passenger to get in and out. Sometimes sports cars don't even have a back seat. Being a Confucius-based society where family values are placed first before individual needs, this mindset would trigger their buying thoughts on what kind of vehicle to get, and a larger four-door type of vehicle would fit the bill, such as a passenger car or a SUV. Now, I didn't say a van or a minivan for a reason. Vans in China are used for two purposes, depending on the brand. One is to transport cargo, and the other have passenger seats, designed like first-class seats on an airplane, with reclining features to lay as flat and comfortable as possible, with massage options and other forms of in-vehicle entertainment to relax during your ride. Common users for these type of vehicles would be company executives for the vans with poshier interiors, or company transport workers for the vans that are not focused on luxury amenities. Rarely would you find a family driving around in a van here, like the soccer mom or soccer dad image that Americans would have for driving a van to work or school. This is how culture plays a role in the car buying decision-making process. Step foot into any car dealership in China and you are greeted with sales folks who will sell vehicles based on status and not personality. If you are a student or a newly minted graduate but wanting to buy an auto brand's flagship vehicle and a luxury one, say a Mercedes S-Class, you will highly get sneers and envy because questions will roam in the air whether that vehicle is appropriate for this person to drive a top-of-the-line vehicle, even if this youngster has the money to buy one. And it doesn't limit to just age status. Work status also plays the same manner when purchasing a vehicle. If your boss drives to work in a BMW 5 Series, for example, it would be very inappropriate to buy a 7 or 8 Series because in this culture, an employee is supposed to appear and behave more modest towards his or her superiors. And by driving a more expensive and flashier car would go against that. You'll be surprised by how many Chinese consumers are well aware of brands and model lines before making a purchase. It may sound superficial, but it's not. What goes on in the minds of Chinese auto buyers is respect. Respect of social status and not to offend others due to what you buy, as the vehicle you would be driving will reflect your status in society. Behaviors like this shapes China's car culture, even down to the color of a vehicle. Rarely would you find red cars on the road because red-colored cars are frequently reserved for use at weddings due to its symbolic meaning of love, harmony, loyalty, fertility, and success. That's why, as a guest to a wedding, it is extremely frowned upon to wear red, as this color is reserved for the wedding host, particularly the bride. If you ever attend a Chinese wedding, you will often see an entourage of red identical cars that are rented for the bride's and groom's respective family members. You wouldn't want to be mistaken as the chauffeur at a wedding in your red car, would you? That would be an embarrassingly awkward, but probably funny moment. So, purchasing a car in China is not as simple as thinking you just need another mode of transportation outside of public transport. Buying a car, any car, can indirectly elevate or humbly lower your social status, as buying habits and preferences are based on a country's culture. China is no different to that. However, as technology continues to improve, there is one preference that is entering the car scene, which will perhaps change the auto industry forever. What is it? The electric vehicle. When we say electric vehicle, what do we think of? We may think of Tesla and Elon Musk for being responsible for the popularity of electric cars. But it wasn't actually the first electric vehicle to hit the market, or any international auto market. Thomas Parker, does that name ring a bell? He was a British electrical engineer who invented the first electric car back in 1884. Yes, electric cars actually existed long before any of us was born. You know that battery in your car? That cube-looking lead-acid battery under your hood that provides high-powered electric current to start your automobile's motor? Yes, that one. The technology of that heavy block battery was what powered vehicles over 100 years ago, long before internal combustion engines that use gasoline became the norm of powering automobiles we see today. At the time, gasoline-powered cars could not achieve the same level of comfort and operating ease as an electric car. Nowadays, most cars can power up the vehicle with a push of a button. But back then, internal combustion engines needed to hand crank the car to start the engine. Imagine trying to start up your car that way while you're outside your vehicle instead of inside during the harsh winter cold. I think I would rather just walk instead. Hand cranking engines were inconvenient, difficult, and even dangerous to use. But, like what I said earlier on how technology advances, internal combustion engines gradually no longer need to hand crank due to a little device called a starter motor, which eliminated the need for hand cranking. This advancement, along with offering more mileage range than an electric car and how batteries took very long to recharge compared to the speed it took to refill at the gas pump, all played a factor into the disappearance of electric vehicles. By the 1920s, electric cars became as extinct as the dinosaurs that powered up its competition. Fast forward to the present time, we are in the 21st century now, and the renaissance of electric cars appear to be on the horizon. As Tesla helped jumpstart, no pun intended, the electric car market again, in China, the demand for electric cars are also growing. The Chinese government in 2009 has given a new term for these vehicles as NEVs, which stands for New Energy Vehicles. Recognizing the long-term benefits of operating one, and as a part of the growing effort to address air pollution, the central government initiated a trial program to provide very attractive subsidies to encourage customers to purchase new energy vehicles at strikingly discounted rates. And the program worked. The Air Quality Index, AQI rates, in the major cities have dropped. The skies became more blue, and by 2016, China marked a new milestone of having sold 500,000 new energy vehicles and becoming the world leader in producing heavy-duty commercial vehicles that are NEV powered, such as buses, cargo carriers, and sanitation trucks. One of the reasons why electric vehicles are more receptive in China, with sales growth continuing to increase year after year, has to do with one type of different driving habit that affects its respective car culture. In the United States, say California for example, how often do you work in the same city as where you live? Very rarely, as people tend to live in the suburbs while their place of work are located in the urban area. Owning and driving a car to anywhere has become a life necessity because it's more convenient to drive where you need to go than rely on a bus that takes too long to come, or a non-existent subway system that doesn't reach the suburban area. That's why the advent of bike sharing doesn't really work for major cities in the United States because of this different commuting habits. Can you imagine bike riding to work for 50 miles and then biking back home for another 50 after work? Who needs gym memberships, right? In China, however, daily inner-city driving is highly common as work, schools, homes, hospitals, and other life's important locations are all situated very close to each other. Due to this, the advantages of using an electric car becomes more appealing and practical because commute distance is short. Thus, driving a very fast car wouldn't make sense as you wouldn't be able to reach high speeds in congested traffic anyway. With a gasoline-powered vehicle, Chinese auto customers would be spending more time at the gas pump with stop-and-go traffic, yet with a new energy vehicle, it would ease their minds on road traffic and their wallets, knowing that the cost per mile is cheaper with an electric car than an internal combustion one. Also, one of the biggest complaints about electric vehicles is their range, fearing that you may not have enough power for your total commute before the need to recharge. With the habit of inner-city driving, this is not a major concern as the range for electric cars is more than enough for Chinese customers due to range limitations of all electric cars not being a problem at all. As part of the Chinese central government's commitment to promote new energy vehicles in the country is to build at least one public charging station for every 2,000 of these vehicles sold. This network of stations is to cover key areas where commuters would often frequent, such as residential areas, business districts, and highways. In 2016, the government announced special license plates to be issued for new energy vehicles, which are green colored compared to the nationwide standard of blue plates for gasoline-powered passenger cars. Recognizing the issues of heavy city traffic and air pollution, the objective of these plates is to offer preferential treatment to NEV car owners by allowing them to drive in any city where a road space rationing scheme have been implemented. What is road space rationing? This is where the local government enacted a law restricting conventional vehicles from driving on the roads once a week based on the last digit of your vehicle's license plate in order to curb traffic. But by being a proud NEV owner with this green license plate, you can drive any time and day of the week, in which this new policy has effectively helped ease traffic congestions and reduce emissions at the same time. Since the introduction of NEVs in China, vehicle sales continue to grow, with a particular Chinese auto manufacturer leading the way, named BYD. Starting off as a company in 1995 that manufactures rechargeable batteries, particularly for mobile devices, BYD made its transition into auto manufacturing after the acquisition of Qinchuan Automobile Company, another Chinese company, in 2002. Seeking to take full advantage of its existing battery production technology and resources, they pursued on making hybrid vehicles to much success, with their first hybrid model named F3DM becoming the world's first mass-produced plug-in hybrid in 2008. In 2 years' time, BYD has become the 6th largest auto manufacturer in China based on sales volume. In 2013, BYD replaced the F3DM with a new plug-in hybrid with better all-electric range and powertrain called the Qin, named after the first imperial dynasty of China. In the subsequent years, the Qin became China's best-selling plug-in hybrid and the world's second best after Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. In 2016, BYD released the Qin EV300, which is their first fully electric version of their passenger car, and since then have consistently ranked in the world's top 10 green energy vehicles. As BYD continues to be one of the leaders in eco-friendly auto technology, they have noticed customers changing driving habits and preferences, leading them to announce their gasoline-powered engines will cease production in 2022 and focus on innovating their plug-in hybrids and fully electric vehicles instead. During that same year, BYD sold more than 640,000 electric vehicles, surpassing Tesla for the first time to become the largest EV manufacturer in the world. As we have witnessed through history on how the automotive industry became a major driver in the US economy, the same industry is becoming a significant component in propelling the Chinese economy and its workforce in the 21st century. No development may be more important for China's industrialization process than the growth of its own auto industry. And by understanding its car culture will give the audience a better insight on how a formerly luxury item reserved only for a selected few individuals became a vital part of the general public's daily life. With China being more open to foreign investments than its Asian neighbors since the 1980s, China's rapid growth in the auto sector have been the backbone for its overall development. Multiple joint ventures from foreign automakers interested to see China and their own investments grow played an early role in establishing friendly relations between their respective companies and China's own automakers, such as agreements made with Volkswagen, Toyota, GM, etc. Here's a little fun trivia question for everyone. Which foreign auto manufacturer was the first to enter China's market? Did you guess Volkswagen? I'm sorry, that's incorrect. A lot of people actually misunderstood VW being the first due to their massive success in China. But it was actually the American Motors Corporation, AMC, that signed the very first auto manufacturing joint venture deal in 1983 with Beijing Automotive Works. AMC was shortly acquired by Chrysler in 1987, which could probably explain why you may not have guessed correctly. But the spirit of AMC still lives on, as its certain car models continue to be made and sold in China, such as the ever-popular four-wheel drive SUV vehicle called Jeep being manufactured in the city of Guangzhou. Economies generally go up and down, a continuous cycle based on the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. When the global financial crisis happened in 2007, countless countries suffered an economic recession. But surprisingly, this barely hit a dent on the Chinese economy, as China's manufacturing sector continues to produce, especially when domestic demand continues to rise. In the following year, China built 9.5 million vehicles, surpassing the United States for the very first time. Just to give you a further idea on how much China has grown, this amount was about 8 times more vehicles sold than in the 1990s, consistently and significantly outperforming itself every year since then. In the following year of 2009, while the global markets were still in a downturn, China sold more than 10 million vehicles to its happy new auto buyers, hitting another milestone. In comparison to other emerging economies such as BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, China's overall vehicle production far exceeded its developing counterparts, where in the turn of the new century, the combined total auto production by the other 3 BRIC nations barely surpassed the total volume growth in China. These figures reveal China's manufacturing capabilities, and the demand for such goods are capturing the attention of investors, joint venture partners, and customers alike. Although some news reports may paint accelerated and unprecedented growth as a danger to the global economy, where fear of this growth could disrupt international trade and supply chain in times of collapse, but those fears are unfounded, as what this production growth has produced led to healthy competition instead, leading to new innovations being released every year. Numerous major auto manufacturers now wait until the annual Beijing or Shanghai Auto Show to showcase their latest, greatest models and technology. As China becomes the world's largest auto market, these 2 major Chinese cities serve as the pinnacle stage for foreign companies to highlight their flagship vehicles. China has come a long way from less than 100 cars on its streets in a half-century ago to hundreds of millions of cars in the present time. As of 2021, there are 302 million cars driven in China. That's more than the population of people in some developed countries. This exponential growth should not be feared, as foreign automakers have recognized and welcomed this positive trend, even producing some vehicles that are exclusive to the Chinese market, such as the Mazda CX-4, Acura CDX, Audi A4L, Honda Avancier, and many more. Over the years, as the central government initiated economic plans to help lift millions of people out of poverty, China's middle class gradually expands with growing interest on spending their new earnings on assets. One of those assets is to provide themselves and their family members another mode of transportation than to rely on public transport or bicycles, which was the primary source for transport in China for many generations. Auto manufacturers took notice and tailored their vehicle models to the values and preferences of Chinese habits, such as offering smaller or NEV engines for inner city commute that made more economic sense, and roomier interiors with better rear seat accommodations for families and company executives, leading to China's own car culture we are witnessing today. Many vehicles with the L letter designation to certain models, which stands for long wheelbase, are typically exclusive models only available for the Chinese market, such as the Mercedes E-Class L, Jaguar XFL, BMW X1L, Audi A3L, and the list goes on. Another example of how this growing middle class is influential to automakers is how it saved one of America's most iconic auto brands from financial ruin. When GM was restructuring its operations since the early 2000s, and then the Great Recession happened in 2007, this economic event hurt them further with the liquidation and sell-off of its many brands, such as Saturn, Geo, Saab, and even Pontiac. Yes, that same brand that I mentioned earlier that helped put muscle cars into the spotlight, even that reputable brand got axed because of failing sales. But Buick, another GM brand that was also struggling annually to hit its sales target, was continuing to sell very well in China due to its focus on passengers' comfort and the family market, which saved itself from complete insolvency. Buick may be viewed as a boring grandfather's car in the US, but to Chinese consumers, they do not view it in the same way and appreciates Buick's approach to put safety, comfort, and family values first in their promotional campaigns. Culture appreciation speaks volumes, and those sales volumes in China led Buick to move its production plant to this country, selling 4 times more vehicles than Buick sold in its native homeland in the US. Although the Chinese auto industry is not as mature as other developed countries, it's no secret that China's economic growth and manufacturing prowess has changed the way auto manufacturers look at themselves. The car culture in this country has led many automakers to re-strategize their marketing and design plans to suit the preferences of Chinese consumers, not just for the drivers, but for the passengers as well. Billions of dollars continue to be invested in this industry, and a large portion of it is in China. By recognizing and appreciating the uniqueness of the different living habits will serve beneficial to any company wishing to do business abroad. And from what we have witnessed thus far since the 1980s, foreign companies and domestic companies working together harmoniously created not only profits but opportunities for further development in technology and innovation that will change the world. The future is not later, but happening as we speak. Hope you enjoyed today's topic on China's car culture, and I thank you for your time listening. See you on the road.